This is really level of violence that is quite shocking.
Canadians opposed to continued lockdowns and pandemic health restrictions took to the streets to express their frustration. Frustration that in Montreal gave way to anger and destruction. While not every protest escalated, the eruption in Montreal a sign that Canada's science communicators have more work to do.
I think it's important for people to be able to vent that. People who have lost their livelihoods, people who are very upset. It's going to come out one way or the other. And I think if they're going to protest outside, that's something that we should accommodate. And I think we should try and understand what their perspective is and try and gauge that rather than try to make it stop.
The public has really observed the science unfold in real time here, watched sort of speculations and inquiry and corrections and a lot of mixed messaging that's been going on for a lot of different reasons. One of the reasons, however, is that's just how science works, is that we propose hypotheses, we test them, and if they're not correct, we correct ourselves and move on with other ideas. And that's how we move forward with a better understanding at each step along the way.
Montreal's protest wasn't the only one in Canada on Sunday. Protesters gathered outside a church west of Edmonton closed by pandemic restrictions. A small part of that group tore down some fencing, but the crowd stayed mostly peaceful. The same couldn't be said of protests in Montreal.
I really do understand the frustration from these young people that, you know, like we all have a bit of pandemic fatigue at this point. But when I see a bunch of people who are gathering in large groups and not wearing masks and yelling their airborne aerosols all over each other, it just makes me sad to think that that's going to make things much worse rather than improve the situation that we're already in.
I have to say that I was stunned because it was a much stronger reaction than I expected in terms of the violence, the number of people involved.
Daniel Bellon teaches at Montreal's McGill University and says he didn't expect Sunday's protest to turn destructive. Bellon says he understands concerns about loss of freedoms and civil liberties, but says if these protests turn violent, the protesters only hurt their own cause.
A lot of people who protest against, masks or public health mandates are against looting and what happened last night in Montreal. So we have also be careful here to say that it's not because you're critical of the government and public health measures and curfews that you're necessarily supporting looting and vandalism. And I think it's important to keep that in mind.
Bellon adds that while all Canadians have a right to protest and free assembly, those rights are predicated on protests remaining peaceful. And if those opposed to lockdowns want to gain more public support, what happened in Montreal cannot be repeated. In Ottawa, Xiaoli Li, City News.
4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, take your seats. Have your first drinks.